We now go to the Chadian capital of N'Djamena, where the Sahel Region Security Summit is underway. The meeting brings together leaders from Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger. The meeting will be held over 2 days, with French President Emmanuel Macron participating via video link. The G5 initiative was started 7 years ago with the aim of improving regional cooperation, development, and security in that region. This year's meeting is expected to address security and terrorism concerns. According to UN reports, militia groups have claimed thousands of lives and caused close to 2 million displacements in the Sahel. A year ago, France deployed an extra 600 troops to improve security. Despite those reinforcements, though, the jihadists remain active. 5 French soldiers are among those killed since December of last year. Well, we're now joined from London by Dr. Manu Lekunze. He's an expert in African security matters. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. What are some of the most pressing issues that leaders in the Sahel region need to address?
So the first thing, of course, is the issue of security. So as you clearly mentioned, over 500,000 people dead, over 2 million displaced. So that is the most pressing issue in the Sahel. But then you have to ask the question, why? Why are we facing this crisis at this magnitude and at this time? So the key thing that the leaders have to think about, because they're heads of state, it's important for them to understand how the state in the Sahel, the various nations of the Sahel, has decayed over time and is no longer capable of providing the services that a state provides for its people. And key of those services is security, of course. So it's very important that they begin to understand and ask themselves questions. Why is it that these states are no longer able to provide basic services for their people, including security? And what is the role of France to play in this process of reforming and providing the kind of capabilities that states need to provide security? So that they cannot escape from this important point.
And added to that, Doctor, how effective has the intervention of France in Sahel security and counterterrorism strategies been?
So, this is a very important question, but also a very difficult question, because the states of the Sahel need the technical support of France and the financial support of France. They do need it, it's clear that, and they also need the manpower that the French soldiers provide. At the same time, on the political level, because of the colonial relationship or links or history between France and the region, there is that anti-French sentiment within society, which makes it complicated in the sense that, yes, France is necessary to provide the skills and the training and even some of the fighting that is necessary, but the role of France in itself is very political. So it helps on one level and doesn't quite help in another level, because the presence of France can help to radicalize some people and increase the insecurity problem, whereas the presence of France is also necessary to help deal with the problem. So it's a complex issue. I know a lot of people will say, oh, France get out or France come in, but it's not as easy as you may hear from the news or from the streets in this region. So it's a complex issue. But the most important thing is that the state in this region no longer works. Everyone says this. And the solution is not more military force, but how can we reform the state to be able to meet the needs, the changing needs of the region? As you rightly said, the population of the region is doubling. The environment, the climate is changing. The economies are not growing. So there are a myriad of problems in the region that need proper state solutions that are lacking. And this is the main problem happening in the Sahel today.
Doctor, speak to us about the challenge of funding in lines of what you have said, and also just in funding the economies, but also with the G5 force, which has been outstanding for so long. What needs to be done to resolve that issue? And as you've said, very, very complex issue, and I suppose we can't discuss it all in the short time that we do have, but what do you think the key priorities are that they could begin doing?
So yes, security is expensive. Everybody knows this. Building a state is expensive. So and you need to understand that the states of this region are among some of the poorest states on earth. So Niger, for example, is one of the poorest states on earth. So funding is an issue that the states cannot generate their own resources to finance their own security. That's the key problem. The second problem is that France, who takes the lead in these issues, is one state who has struggled to motivate the international community to provide financing to the level that is needed. So France turns to bear the burden of the intervention by itself with little support from the EU, the US, and the UK. So it's an issue that appears to be a French issue, therefore requires French funding, but it's really the Sahel is not very far from Europe. So the Sahel is an African problem, but also a European problem. So funding needs to be coordinated from Europe, as well as thinking about what can we do in terms of the economies of the states of the Sahel region so that they can themselves be able to generate a level of financing that is necessary to provide security. So the problem is a security issue, but it's also a political and economic issue. So you have to deal with the economics, the local economics of the states, so that they can have the finance to go a long way to finance their security, while France and the rest are motivating or mobilizing international finance to help. So it's a two-way financing problem. At the present, there's simply both parties don't have the money to finance security in the Sahel. So that's why it makes it even more complex, because there's just no money to deal with it.
Dr. Lekunze, thank you so much for all that. Dr. Manu Lekunze is an expert in African security matters.